All right, hey, we have another Patreon episode here with BlackBeardBandit, and he wanted to talk about screen size for playing League. Is that correct?
Yeah. Interesting thought experiment.
Yeah, so what are you thinking about it?
So this actually came up with one of my friends. We were talking about the game, and he was surprised that I was playing on 27-inch monitor because he was saying a lot of the people he's heard really try to stick with a 21-inch around that size.
Okay.
And my question about that is it because it's easier to pay attention to hand-eye coordination with the screen that size? If it gets too big, are you thinking that you're going to have to swing your hand all over the place?
Okay, so my thought about that is, well, a lot of it's personal preference, right? But obviously I would think you probably don't want to play on like a 50-inch like TV unless you're sitting way far back. Because, yeah, if you...
Zooming in on your character.
Yeah, because I've actually seen people have a three monitor setup where you can see, like, basically from the mid lane, you could see into your jungle. It's, like, ridiculous. But the problem with that is the minimap stays in that bottom right corner, so it's super, super far away. So it's really not that useful. Then I've also seen people, like, do kind of a screen capture, live screen capture. So they, like, have a live screen capture of their minimap and blow it up on like a second monitor or something like that. So that's how people get away with that. So it's like as big as their monitor, and they might have like a huge like 32-inch or 27-inch monitor and stuff like that. So that's one way to do it. But I think ideally a lot of it's based on personal preference and then not overdoing it, because if the monitor is too big, it definitely is a lot harder to look at the minimap. And it also depends on how far away from the screen you are. But I'm just thinking if you're at a normal computer desk doing that, having to look a lot further where it's really like in your peripheral rather than like in front of you, it would be a lot more difficult to see what's going on in the minimap, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. But with that whole screen capture thing, is there any delay time on that? Or I would think you'd get super pixelated if you blew it up that big on a second monitor.
Yeah, it would get very pixelated. I don't think there's any delay on it. I mean, I'm sure it depends on the software you're using and maybe like your computer and stuff like that. But I don't think it's that difficult. But yeah, it gets super pixelated, but the resolution on your minimap doesn't really matter, right? You're only looking for like when the red dots pop up or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, but I will say this. I don't know if they still do it, but every now and then in previous seasons of the LCS, you'd see like Korean pros playing on a windowed mode that was almost like a 4:3 resolution, like aspect ratio. So it didn't even fill up the full screens that the LCS or the professional play uses. And they only used a small screen, which was kind of like the old, I think, monitors back in the StarCraft era, because they weren't widescreen back then. So they used to use that. Some pros still might use it that way. I actually changed mine to match the Korean pros like 3 seasons ago, and I was actually performing better. Oh, okay, I shouldn't say that. I felt like I was performing better. I didn't keep any statistics or anything. Then I switched back to widescreen because it just looks so ugly. I'm like, I'm wasting so much screen space, and I don't know. I don't know if it's better or not. And I'm sure there's reasons for it, right? But then also, just having a bigger screen, like, do you really need to see both sides of the jungle if you're in mid lane? Like, does it really, really bring that much value if it's that much harder to see the minimap? Or, the champion portraits, or like ult timers, like to see if your allies' ults are up or who's dead and who died on the death recap on the sidebar, those kind of things. But yeah, I think a 27. I think Blake plays on a pretty big screen. I can't remember. It might be a 32-inch, but I think he sits a little bit back from his screen.
That seems massive for me.
It does sound massive. Mine are 24 inches. I think that's the standard, like 24-inch, and it works well for me. I cannot blame my large screen size for missing the minimap. It's definitely just my lack of awareness of looking at the minimap. So,
Just
but
need to get that video going.
yeah,
App.
yeah. Then I'm just gonna end up blocking that out. It's just gonna be like white noise, right? So that's another problem with that. But I would say, so you said you have a 27-inch?
Yeah, that's what I play on right now. And then my argument with you where you said, is it really that important to see character portraits and that stuff with the side? I would say if you would go into that smaller windowed mode, though, yeah, everything's right in front of you. But, I mean, it's going to be that much smaller trying to figure out what's going on with it.
Yeah, what ends up happening is like with the resolution, it really cuts off the space that you can see on the screen. It doesn't like really scale like the champions bigger and smaller too. But the HUD, like everything on the bottom, the left, or I don't know about the left, but the bottom, the bar with all your status stuff, and the map, that all can be scaled. And I never recommend scaling the map down because it's really, really important information that people have a hard time keeping track of anyway. Yeah, I definitely think it's really, really important. But if you're on a 27-inch, you could always like go into window mode and change the resolution. So, and your mouse won't drag off of it as long as I think you have to keep. I don't know if you can do borderless. I can't remember. Yeah, I'm sure you can.
I think you can do borderless. You just have to set your ratio to a specific size.
Yeah.
I'm going to try that out with the windowed mode and see if that makes a difference, if it's easier to play on or not. But, I mean, I'm going to be going to my parents basically for Christmas, so I'm going to be logging around on this Surface Pro 4.
Oh my gosh, can you play on a Surface Pro?
Oh yeah, I
Runs
play
it?
it all the time.
Well, I guess like that stuff is like really, really good for like editing and all that kind of like multimedia stuff. So League is not a really intensive graphics intense game.
Demanding at all. Like I can play that. I've played more demanding stuff on that than League.
Sure. I feel you. Huh, that should be fun.
Well, yeah, I think that's going to be a good thing. Just kind of track and see, all right, well, let's see if it makes a slight difference in, how I actually win or not.
Yeah, and this is the thing, like, even like, just because you have a bigger screen and you're using more of the screen, like, how important is it to see what's going on, like, outside of your danger zones, right? If you're an AD carry, you have to be aware of people's flashes and like their gap closers, but most likely it's not. You don't have to worry about someone that's like a screen and a half away, right? And then when things get really, really busy in team fights, you're not looking at you're not looking at the edge of the screens anyway because you're like tunneling in on your targets or where you are. So you probably just like completely black out on like everything else on the edge of your screen. So if you add more to your screen or you shrink that outside area, probably really doesn't matter that much. I would think. At least for me. Yeah. And I will say, whatever you do, whenever you switch it, it's probably gonna be weird at first too. So just because it doesn't feel right the first time doesn't mean it's a wrong decision.
Right. You can't just do it once and be like, nope, this sucks. I'm going back. Never again.
Exactly. Maybe I'll try playing today in a different aspect ratio. See what happens. Then I could blame all my losses on it. That'd be useful.
Yeah, there you go. That's why you need to post a pre-windowed mode and then windowed mode win rate.
Yeah. The only thing is if I'm streaming, then everyone's going to be like, what the hell's wrong with your monitor? This is so weird, right?
Right.
Yeah, everyone wants it in a nice widescreen aspect ratio and stuff. Cool. Anything else you want to discuss about that?
Results after I try it out.
Yeah, let me know. That sounds really interesting. If you end up trying it out.
I know you had probably in July or something, you guys had an episode where you're just talking about gaming rigs also, and like what everyone was running on their rig and how they play with that. So
like key bindings and like the mice, else. Right? I think that's what it was.
Not the key bindings itself. Someone was just talking about the hardware in general.
Oh.
And, how much of a difference it makes. It makes no difference.
Yeah. I mean, when you're like I'm stuck in bronze because my mouse is a Dell crappy mouse. Like, no, you're stuck in bronze because you're bronze, right?
I think it was Blake who said some guy with no hands
Yeah, yeah.
is playing
That's.
this in what, gold or something.
I think he hit plat or diamond.
I just feel terrible about myself now.
It just takes a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication. I really do believe that anyone can get to gold if they really want to put the effort to get to it, or if they train correctly. 'Cause, bad practice leads to bad results too, and bad habits and those things. But yeah, hardware. I mean, if your computer drops to like 10 FPS during a fight, yes, that's important. That probably does affect your performance, Or if your internet's really crappy where you're like loading in after everyone else loads, so you're always late to the first wave, yes, that is important. But yeah, for the most part, there's plenty of people that play on a laptop, or I've seen people play on a trackpad at like gold level, which blows my mind. Yeah, there's a lot more to it, and I think it's not the right way to think that you can just buy your way up and improve yourself that way.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Actually, on the hardware, another thing that I've heard some people go on about is using those customized keypads where basically you have a directional controller on your thumb, and then the buttons match your fingers. So it would be this small, basically palm keyboard that you would use.
Yeah,
The directional stick would just control your camera, so that way you're not relying on your mouse to do those quick movements to try and move your screen around all the time.
Oh, that's crazy to me. I think as someone, go ahead.
No, because that was one thing when I used to play Dota before I played League, and when I was playing Dota, I would actually I would use the WASD to control my screen all the time. Yeah. I'd have all my skills then set around that so I could match everything.
So your skills you're still using your skills with your left hand though, right?
Yeah, they would be. So what happened was I'd have some skills on my left hand, and I'd have some skills bound to my mouse.
That's
on
crazy.
Some certain buttons, because I'd have some buttons right next to my thumb on my mouse, so you could do some of that stuff. But then you're just getting into key bindings with that. But that's not something I've heard a lot of people do so much in the League scene. Most everyone is doing the quick mouse flicks to move your screen around.
Yeah. I think what ends up happening, that's also another thing that I liked about the smaller screen, was it was easier to do that, because I run my mouse at a pretty low sensitivity. I think a lot lower than most people. So flicking the screen, I mean, it doesn't bother me, but there are some there are a few instances where I feel like I can't control my screen as well, and I think that's because of the low sensitivity I use. That being said, like anyone that's come from playing StarCraft, which I played a little bit, but I learned that a lot. So controlling the screen movement is second nature to me. Some people just play FPSs no problem, like I can't play FPSs to save my life. I'm really, really bad at aiming and all that stuff and turning around, and I just lose track of everything that's going on. While some people that have been doing that since GoldenEye have no problem doing that on a controller or a keyboard and mouse, while I can't. So when it comes to controlling a screen and moving around that way, like I don't have an issue with that. That being said, I have heard people do that on League. It's just a rare instance, and I think freeing up your left hand for all those spells and just your right hand for accurate clicking. Because I feel like if you press a button while you're clicking on your mouse, you could hinder agility and like accuracy. I could be wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think that's the issue when you have like 80 carries that really, really need to like click very accurately, or even like assassins like Zeds and stuff like that, where clicking accuracy is really, really important. If you're playing like a Sona, probably not as important. But I think just because people have enough familiarity with screens being moved by the mouse cursor, that's why most people do that. I don't know what your background is when it comes to WASD versus that kind of movement. Maybe that's...
I'm all over the place. I'm all over the place with that. I'll do the FPS fine. I'll do the WASD fine. The mouse flick is fine too.
Okay.
It's just it's one of the things where I was looking at it and like, well, that could be viable with how I used to play games before I switched over, because the left-hand mouse pad I was talking about, you end up getting about 3 buttons for finger.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not running out of any of your item cast or your skills on that one. It's still going to be set on your left. The issue that I see with it is going to be going to store and trying to find what you want real quick if you have to type something in. You don't have like custom sets on every single person.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people do have custom sets, especially if they're like, maybe not necessarily for specific champions, but if you're like playing support mainly, especially now that queuing, you get your primary role much more than you used to. Now with one of the patches, I don't remember which one, but it was a pretty recent one, I think. You could just have like your support items and your like jungle items. And then you don't have to build Soraka. You could build like, these are probably the first builds, and these are like a list of 10 other items that I'll build, because honestly, if you're support, your range of items probably doesn't go more than 15. And that's probably including like some very niche ones, if like you want to build a needlessly large rod item because you're really, really fed on like a Vel'Koz support. I think your custom item if you want to do item sets, you can actually do that, so you can get around those weird key bindings by just making item sets. But then if you're playing a ton of different champions, then yes, you're gonna have maybe an issue that you need to sit down and just make like 5 item sets maybe, or 7 item sets. I'm not really sure. That's one way to do it. But yeah, did you? We will be talking. I'm talking this week with Daylor. He was an old coach for Fnatic back in the day, and he's part of a Kickstarter campaign now. He's been working on a new keyboard, and the keyboard's actually it's split into 2, and it's supposed to be designed for more ergonomic gameplay, because the keyboards aren't designed ergonomically, at least gaming keyboards. So the way it's supposed to be super, super customizable when it comes to binding keys. Like the spacebar is split up into like 4 buttons, so you could bind the spacebar into multiple buttons that your thumb can use, and you could rebind like all the keys very easily. And since it's in 2 parts, you could just have like your mouse there and then just the left part of the keyboard just for gaming, right? So you wouldn't be able to type. But that's pretty interesting. You should check that out. Like I said, I'm gonna do a podcast episode with him, talking to him about that Kickstarter campaign, so maybe you should listen to that.
Link that Kickstarter to the that podcast.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that.
That sounds like a real interesting keyboard.
It is. Only thing is, it's probably going to be expensive. I know he's targeting for more of the mid to high range of keyboard prices. But that being said, when it comes to health, spending decent money for your health, if it helps your wrist not have issues and all this kind of stuff, and it makes playing the game easier, that might be pretty cool. I'm excited to see what happens with it.
Reason you're just balling that into health. Oh yeah, this is totally good for your health.
Yeah, I can spend. Hey wife, I can spend this much money on this because of my health. Yeah, right. So yeah, I'm excited to do that episode. That'll be coming out. I think I'm recording it with him on Wednesday, so we'll see how that goes.
You should. You know what? Drop it in if he's ever heard or seen people play with that custom left-hand mouse pad.
Ooh, I will ask. I'm gonna write that down right now. It's just like he's like variations of key equipment, I guess. Yeah, you'll have to link me to what you're talking about exactly, because I have a kind of an idea, but I don't know exactly. So you have to send that to me. But
I bet you Razer has one.
It's just like a 12 keypad, like 12 button keypad, right? That you're talking about?
Yeah. It's super simple. I'll find it. I'll send it to you.
Cool.
And it'll make total sense when you see it. You're like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. With that, is there anything else you'd like to talk about when it comes to this?
Nah, that's gonna be it. That got everything.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. So with that, thank you again, Blackbeard Bandit for being an awesome patron, and I'm happy to be able to do these episodes. Make sure every month you let me know if you have another subject. I know we haven't been I haven't been super communicative with all of our patrons, and a lot of our patrons haven't asked, but if you ever have a need, let me know, and we'll try to figure out how to make it work.